Hello once again, MMA fans. I'm going to come to you and do the UFC Nations Collide 70 predictions here. Figured why not get on here, do the predictions a few weeks early. It's not going to be a pay-per-view now. It's going to be shown on free TV on Spike, which is great. It's, like I've stated before, saves us $40. Get to see guys like Orlovsky, Michael Bisping, Crow Cop on free TV. This is amazing. Just some oversights and some things that didn't come to fruition right away for the UFC and both HBO. So this card brought to us for free on Spike TV. It's big ups for the UFC to do that for everybody. They could have easily done something else. They could have did a tape delay and just try to fit it in on a delayed pay-per-view, but they didn't do that. They put it on free TV. I'm going to do just the main card on this prediction show. The undercards are mainly sprinkled in a few guys who've had some UFC experience. David Lee was pretty much destroyed in his only fight in UFC by Tyson Griffin. Alessio Sakara, a guy who seemingly has a lot of hype behind him with his boxing skills and whatnot, but always seems to come up short in his fights. Few cage rage guys here, so I'm gonna just stick to the main card predictions in this segment. I'm gonna do Asuero Silva versus Czech Congo as the first fight. Heavyweight battle here, big heavyweights. Asuero Silva's fought much stiffer competition in his career, I believe. Pride, UFC, Jungle Fight. He's cage rage even. He's a veteran of a lot of different organizations, as is Czech Congo. He seemed to be on a little bit of a tear, was getting built up by the UFC with his wins over Christian Wellich and Gilbert Aldana. Some pretty impressive KOs there. Then he ran into a guy, Carmelo Marrero, seemingly a guy who would be better fit at the 205 division as a wrestler by trade, and he really just took Congo down at will, held him there. Didn't allow Congo to get into his game as a striker, and exposed the big weaknesses in Congo's game. So Asuero Silva, I believe, will win this fight because he's a more well-rounded fighter, has fought stiffer competition, although he has lost against stiffer competition. He's lost against Brendan Vera, Tim Sylvia, Alexander Emelianenko, as has Congo. One of the fighters of note that he's lost to, Gilbert Yvel, by KO. So I think that Asuero holds a distinct edge in this fight and will probably win due to his more well-rounded skills. On to the next fight, Michael the Count Bisping against Elvis Sinasek. Elvis is a fighter that I don't really I have a lot of respect for mixed martial artists and MMA fighters as a whole, but Elvis is just a guy I feel that is put on cards. I mean, he's pretty much built a career on arm-barring Jeremy Horn a long time ago, 7-8 years ago, and anytime he's gotten a fight against a guy of note, Tito Ortiz, Emmett Tanner, Hanato Babalusa Brawl, Forrest Griffin, Alessio Sakara brutalized him in his last UFC appearance. It was just pounded on for 3 straight rounds. His face was a mess after that fight. It just seems to come up short against the better guys that he's fought. I mean, he's just pretty much got that one win against Jeremy Horn and kind of just made an MMA career off of it. He's fighting Michael Bisping. I think UFC is doing a smart thing here. They're putting a guy in front of Bisping that they know might make him look impressive in front of the UK crowd, build him up a little bit, put a name on his record, continue his undefeated streak. Sinasek's a tough guy. I think Bisping, obviously, from what I've said, is probably going to win this fight, probably by a KO stoppage in the first or second round. He's just such a well-rounded striker. He's got good submission skills as well. He's got good kicks, got good punches. Even though he did look a little tentative in his first true UFC test and his last fight, he still came through and finished the fight. So I think that Sinasek is in for a bad night here with Michael Bisping by a stoppage. On to the next fight, Andre the Pitbull Arlovsky against Fabrizio Verdun. This is a good fight, really good fight. I'm looking forward to this fight, probably more so than the Crow Cop Gabriel Gonzaga fight, because this is probably the most competitive fight on the card. People are not going to know who Verdum is, but they're going to find out quickly who he is. He's fought some of the best heavyweights in the world: Nogueira, Roman Zensov. He's a really good fighter. From Pride, trains with Mirko Cro Cop, has been schooling Mirko in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game for 2 to 3 years now, fighting Andrei Arlovski. Like I've stated before, this is going to be a similar game plan Arlovski's going into with the Marcio Pedopano Cruz fight, where he's going to have to sprawl and brawl, keep this fight on the feet. Really has good sambo skills, but he doesn't want to go to the ground with an elite jiu-jitsu guy like Verdum, who even Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira said had better BJJ skills than him prior to their fight. So you know that he's definitely a top shelf when it comes to his Brazilian jiu-jitsu. But I did watch the Nogueira Verdum fight, and showed me a lot of things. Obviously, Nogueira is not near the striker or the athlete that Arlovski is, and he was able to knock Verdum down quite a few times in that fight. So it's going to be interesting to see. Arlovski's such an athlete for his size. He's got such good footwork and hand skills. He moves so well. Very hard to hit. Although Verdum is coming off a win in his last fight against Alexander Emelianenko, I think he submitted him in that fight. I'm going to go with Arlovski on this one. I think if he catches Verdum on the feet, it's going to be lights out, and I think Arlovski now sees that Tim Sylvia is not in the picture no more at the heavyweight title picture anymore. He sees Cro Cop up there, also Randy Couture, so it's going to be a little bit easier of a run for him, I think, and he's still a top 5 heavyweight in the world. So I pick Arlovski to win this one by KO in the first round. On to the next fight: David Heath against Lyoto Machida. Heath, a guy who's got a lot of experience in mixed martial arts. A lot of people aren't going to know who he is, but he's definitely a good submission guy. He's replacing Forrest Griffin, who unfortunately came down with staph. I think the ratings for this would have went to the roof because Spike and Forrest just seem to go together so well. Last time he was on Spike was against Stephan Bonner, and that was just a whole explosion for the UFC, the Ultimate Fighter. So it kind of hindered their show a little bit. But I think Heath is a good fighter. He's going up against Machida. Machida I would have picked to beat Forrest, actually, if Forrest would have went into the fight. I was going to pick Machida in this fight, even when I saw it was announced. I think Machida showed how tough he was and just how well-rounded he was against Sam Hoger, even though that's not a true test for Machida. I think that if he wins against Dave Heath, he'll probably see him in with a tougher guy like maybe a Keith Jardine, possibly. That would be a really good fight to see. But I picked Machida to win this fight. He's just so tough, and he's an undefeated fighter. He's very well regarded in the MMA community. Anybody you've ever heard talk about him on Sherdog or MMA Weekly, what have you, they just have nothing but great things to say about Machida. And I think that he's probably going to finish Dave Heath in the second round, even though they did go to a decision with Hoger. I believed Hoger is a really tough guy, isn't as bad as people thought he was, and Machida really gave him the kitchen sink and then some, and he was able to take it. But in this fight, I think Machida is going to win by a stoppage. On to the next fight: Mirko Cro Cop against Gabriel Gonzaga, and it's pretty much a foregone conclusion for most people that Cro Cop is going to win this fight, as in the Eddie Sanchez fight. This is a precursor to a match with Cro Cop and Randy Couture. Cro Cop is going to be coming in as the hired assassin, the foreign villain. He's going to get booed beyond belief when he takes on Couture. And I guess me saying that, pretty much, I'm picking Cro Cop in this fight. Gonzaga is undefeated in the UFC. He's beaten some okay guys. Had one of the most boring fights in UFC history with Kevin Jordan back at UFC 56. He knocked him out with a Superman punch in the third round. Finally, it was just while they pretty much the whole fight was them just circling and looking at each other. He beat Carmelo Marrero in his last UFC appearance by a submission, which was a good victory. Marrero was coming off his win on Congo, and he was able to submit Marrero, so that was an impressive victory. But I think Cro Cop is just too good of an athlete. He's just so impressive in his last 3 or 4 fights. He's Hideyoki Yoshida, he stopped him with leg kicks, and Yoshida's a very tough guy. You saw that in his last fight with James Thompson, and all his fights really is really tough, and he was able to just make him quit with leg kicks. His next fight after that, he was able to beat Mirko Cro Cop. He was able to beat Vanderlei Silva with the feigned head kick. He knocked him out. He even went to the ground and pounded on Vanderlei a little bit, and he also did that with Josh Barnett. And anytime you start to see that more and more with Cro Cop as his game's manifested and become a lot more well-rounded. He's more willing to go to the ground with guys and pound on them. You saw that with Silva. We saw that with Josh Barnett, and we also saw that with Eddie Sanchez. You just get on top of a guy and have a really strong presence in the mount and just finish them off. Even in guard, he was just very tough in his ground and pound, and that's just further testament to his hard training and his commitment to becoming an even more dangerous mixed martial artist as he wasn't before. Wow. Gonzaga has a chance to submit Cro Cop, but I don't think that'll happen. I think he'll finish this on the feet, and he'll go on to face Randy Couture probably later on this summer, and that's going to be a mega fight, probably done here in the States. And it's the perfect setup. We have the all-American hero pretty much, and Randy the Natural Couture going up against Mirko Cro Cop, who's going to get booed. And I think it's going to be I don't want to predict that fight just yet, but I think it's going to be not a cakewalk for Cro Cop, but it's going to be. Never like to doubt Randy Couture especially after what he's done in his career and just recently with Tim Silva. But Cro Cop is just such a phenomenal fighter, and has been fighting the best heavyweights and the best fighters in the world for 5+ years now. Best strikers, best mixed martial artists at heavyweight for so long now, that I think that his skills and his abilities are just so much head and shoulders above everybody else's. He'll win this fight with Gonzaga and probably go on to face Couture and win. So that's it for UFC 70. We've got a lot of MMA coming up. Pride right after UFC 69. That's a very interesting card. We're going to get to see Sokoudjou back in the ring for Pride against Ricardo Arona. I figured they were going to throw him in and test him, see if that was a fluke with Rogerio Nogueira, and I think that's going to be a pretty good fight. We're going to get to see what Sokoudjou is really all about, probably against a much more prepared opponent. And Arona, we're going to get to see Vanderlei Silva. They're putting him right back in the ring. That was a shock to me when I saw his name on the slated on that card. Don't know who his opponent's going to be. That's very interesting to see who he's going to fight. This is not a make or break fight for him, but it's going to be a sort of a must win for Vanderlei. And I think I wouldn't want to be fighting Vanderlei. I would not want to be fighting Vanderlei coming off his last 2 defeats. I think he's definitely wants to go out and be impressive. So we've got a lot to look forward to in this upcoming month of April. Until then, you guys have a good one. Take care. Can't wait to hear your comments and predictions on UFC 70. Thank you.